Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, if this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby. So on this podcast, we talk about the games that we love and the games that we love to run and the games that we play and the cool, wonderful people that we, get to experience the hobby with. This is your first time hearing about tabletop RPGs, go find yourself a table. And if you are a player in someone else's table, maybe it's your turn to be the GM.
Indeed. Now this week, we've got a update in the second RPG that Ramon is working on. Actually, I'm not sure which name you want to go with, but he is working on a new RPG. We're going to get into it. We did talk about it briefly before, but we're going to get into more detail on this sort of fighting game-inspired tabletop RPG.
It's called The Living Legend or Living the Legend or Living Legend. We don't know yet. These are the names.
One of those. Yeah, we did a very brief playtest of it, and yeah, we will get into discussing that and the design of it. But before we do all that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Ramon this week. Is that really a GM Tip of the Week? I guess it's like a tabletop RPG Tip of the Week. In light of all of the controversies of, all of the hard-working people over at WotC, making all that D&D and Magic the Gathering content that have been let go because of basically corporate greed, you should go, if those people go and make new RPGs or work on separate projects, go support them. And also go support, any indie tabletop RPG, creators out there, because, those guys they're making something with passion. And, as much as D&D has propelled the hobby, kind of into the modern era and to the mainstream, the people behind it, the real people behind it with the money and stuff, they don't get it, and you should let them know how you feel with your wallet. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, as much as one can. I know they were sort of significantly impacted by all the canceled D&D Beyond subscriptions a while back. So, and again, this really should have been D&D's year. It's kind of a shame that the people who actually work there are the ones who suffer the most for certain decisions, because with Baldur's Gate and the D&D movie coming out this year, I'm pretty sure that was this year, the time is a blur and a mess, but with both of those, this really should not have been, the axe should have fallen on them. It's unfortunate.
Exactly. And in a year where they, had record profits, and actually the most profitable portion of Hasbro was WotC. It doesn't make any sense for them to cut 29% of positions from that side of their business, but hey, whatever. I don't know how to make investors happy, and I hope maybe one day I'll own a company and maybe this tabletop RPG is successful. I just won't have any investors, because that's just an awful way to do business, and I don't need that stuff, man.
True. I mean, I feel like it's going to get worse as they need less people once they have the new edition out.
Well, anyway,
once they're in maintenance mode. But yes, the tip of the week is go try other games. Or if you're going to play D&D, don't give Hasbro any money.
Yeah, just don't buy any more books from D&D. I don't know. That's kind of my way I usually bash D&D in the channel.
What?
Just
no.
Not because of the people. Yeah, not because of the people who make the game. It's the people who own the IP, I should say. They don't get it. They don't get it. They just don't get it.
Yeah, anyway, I think in all honesty, there's a lot of really good third-party stuff out there that people can check out if they want to keep playing Dungeons and Dragons, or you can just play with the stuff that you already have and the friends you already have. Exactly. If you don't want to get invested in their new systems or anything like that. I know we're super negative about D&D all the time on here, but as a game itself, if that's the thing you want to play, if that's what you want to do with your friends, and you have some cool independent thing that was written for it, then go ahead and do that. You don't have to just follow whatever the newest thing is or whatever is coming out of Hasbro at the time.
Yeah. Well, not to dwell on this anymore. Yeah, corpus be corpin as usual.
Corpus be corpin.
And so yeah, there you go. Tip of the week. Explore other things that outside of D&D. If you are just a D&D type of person, yeah, check some more stuff out, because there's some cool, interesting people and ideas out there that's not tied to shareholders.
True.
Yeah.
Speaking of cool ideas, Ramon, you are working on a second tabletop RPG. We did talk about it a few weeks ago, I think, but let's just give people a quick summary on the concept, because it's been some time.
This is Living the Legend, aka Living Legend, or The Living Legend tabletop RPG. This tabletop RPG is kind of based on fighting games. I've been like getting into playing some Street Fighter, and I've been definitely I've been a Guilty Gear fan. If any of you guys out there know fighting games, so I kind of wanted to have I think that Grand Saga, my other tabletop RPGs that I was working on, was a little bit more fantasy sword and board, and I wanted something kind of quick and punchy, pun intended. And yeah, so this is Living Legend, my fighting game tabletop RPG. It's all about fast-paced combat, lots of movement, lots of interactions, lots of counters, lots of dodges, lots of guarding, all the cool fun stuff you'd find in a fighting game, but kind of distilled into a turn-based tabletop RPG. The rules are a lot simpler. Getting started is super easy. And the flow would be, you charge up your meter like in a fighting game. You build up and then you launch your special attacks. And, those special attacks get converted into this thing called tension. And the GM can use that tension to crank up the difficulty, or, launch their own, like the enemy NPC's own special counterattack moves. And then at the end, how much SP you've used, that's how you level up and increase your power. So, it's all in service of, doing more violence, I guess. Violence to do more violence, but in the fun way.
As many tabletop RPGs are. But yeah, you're sort of encouraged to use those special moves because they come back to you as XP.
Yeah, that's kind of the basis right now for the game. And there's classes ranging from Punchman 3000 to Sword Guy 5000 and Magic Man.
Well, let's get into the character stuff. I don't think we got into it too deep, or certainly it's a lot different now than it was before. So let's kind of start with the basics of the character stuff and how ranks and skills work within the game.
Yeah, so all of your stats is based on the rank that it is, and the rank dictates like the die you use in the interaction. So everybody, or like the lowest rank you would have is E, which is you don't actually roll a die, it's actually just one. And it goes to S, which is a D12. So it goes D, 1D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. And during character creation, you would choose a fighting style, which is the way that you would generate your SP. So I kind of drawing this inspiration from older fighting games like Marvel vs. SNK, where you would just choose like the style you want, which is either like, they called it a groove, where it was like it's basically like the way you usually get like a special thing about your character, or like, you get a special way to use your meter. Same thing here, except in reverse, where it's where you gain meter. So there's aggressive, so every time you land an attack; defensive, every time when you get attacked; and charge, which you just use the special mechanic, which is called delay. Or I think I changed this to wait now, where you don't take a turn, but you get to charge up and attack, basically.
Yeah, so you have different ways to play, just even based on the basis of your character, I guess. When we did our test run, I was playing a more aggressive character, so I was trying to get in there and get some hits, because that would give me more special meter that I could use for my better moves. Exactly.
And so each style gives you like a rank increase. So for aggressive, I believe it was your speed. So your starting speed rank, after you chose that playstyle, you would go from E to D, which is a D4. Then you choose a class /archetype. I'm not sure what I'm going to call them. But it represents kind of like the flavor of the fighter that you're playing. So Calvin chose the Sword Master, so it gained an increase in weapon arts skill. and as well as a speed skill. So his speed rank went up to C, which is a D6, and he's starting before choosing his optional bonus increases. His weapon rank increased to a E. So he's starting off in like a good place, I guess.
C, yeah.
Yeah. And then
D,
on top of that, D, sorry, yeah. And then afterwards, you would choose your attacks that you get, like your basic attacks, or like your special moves you would get, based on the amount of your rank above E in your combat skills, I call them. So like there's 3 combat skills. There's sorcery, there's martial arts, and there's weapon arts. So, you're really good at punching and grabbing and doing all the close combat stuff. You're really good at using your SP to convert it into like magic spells and shooting fireballs and mostly a lot of range attacks. And your weapon arts, which is your cool swords and slashes and stuff like that. So Calvin chose to dump it all into his weapon skill.
Weapon arts.
Weapon arts, sorry. Yeah, his weapon arts. And you ended up with a B rank, so you chose like 3 skills, 3 attacks, I should say. And that was his like starting character, which was really good at dodging and really good at attacking. Luckily, he wasn't attacked by anything with like that's undodgeable, or like he couldn't get away, because he would have not been able to really do much to defend himself otherwise.
Yeah, not really. I feel like my character is pretty fragile, but that's kind of the build I was going for. Like I wanted something that was sort of mobile, but also like very good at using the weapon, their chosen weapon. I was just picturing like a sword. But in addition, like that ended up being a very fragile character.
Exactly. I mean, and that's kind of the trade-off, right? As well as your skill ranks kind of dictate like your hard stats, I want to call it. So it's like your HP and your dash, which is like your movement, like your regular movement speed. So every rank up, your dash translates to like your speed translates to higher dash, and your bulk, which is your defensive guard property, translates to higher HP. That's like how it works. As well as the Swordmaster gives you 2 passive bonuses, I should say, or like abilities, which one of them is Cut Them Down, which means you get bonus dice on weapons, bonus damage dice on like weapon strikes, if your weapon skill is higher than your opponent, because you're better at you're just the sword master, right? You're the master of weapon strikes. And you have nimble footwork, which means if the defender chooses to dodge or successfully dodges your attack, you can just follow their movements with a dash, or you can move or reposition wherever you want to. So it's the idea is like you're following through with your strike. Even though the opponent dodges out the way, you use your momentum to propel you forward or reposition or whatever.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to get into the whole I know we talked about this before, but like I want to get into the differences of like dodging attack, countering attack, or guarding against an attack.
Yeah, so this is like I would say the primary gameplay interaction is like this this triangle in my head of like options that you choose when you're being attacked. So the attacker gets to choose the attack and declares the attack, and then the defender has a choice of how they want to react to it. So the easiest straightforward one is to guard. So guard means that the attacker doesn't roll any attack. You don't roll any sort of way to, like, the attack automatically hits you because you're just choosing to tank it. So any other sort of on-hit effects still apply, but you get to reduce the damage based on your bulk. So if you're a really big, bulky character, you can end up just not taking any damage from an attack because, you would roll a higher number versus their damage die on that attack. And if you choose to dodge, it's a roll between the opponent's trying to hit you and you trying to dodge. So you'd roll your speed plus a d6, and they would roll their attack skill for that attack. For instance, if they're using a martial arts attack, they would use their martial arts skill die plus another d6, and you compare the results. And if your result is higher, you dodge, you don't take any damage, and you get to dash. So you get to use your movement on someone else's turn to reposition and get out of, the follow-up attacks.
Yeah, or you have to move like at least one space and like not be in your original space.
Yeah, you have to change your position on the board. You can't just like move and then move back.
Which I tried to do.
Which you tried to do, yeah. That's not that might change in the future. We don't know. But I feel that's kind of in the spirit of keeping the gameplay dynamic. So it's like, it's not the fact that you didn't take any damage. It's like, oh shoot, maybe this attack pushed me out of the position where my attacks can land, and maybe now I have to use a dash to get back into position. But that's kind of like the trade-off, right? So you can choose to negate further damage by physically moving out of the way, right, repositioning, or you can hang in their attack range and try and dodge some more, and so you can launch your own counterattack on your turn, essentially. And speaking of counterattacks, that's the next choice you can do as a defender. This is based on the type of attack you're being attacked with. So there's 3 types of attacks: light, medium, and heavy. They correspond to damage dice that you roll, but also kind of like represents the speed of the attack. So light attacks can counter medium attacks, and medium attacks and light attacks can counter heavy attacks. So the slower the attack, the more easy it is to be countered. But if you do mess up and still get hit after trying to counterattack, the opponent gets another action for free. So it's the riskiest, option, but you get to, basically your reward is that you get to damage the opponent on their turn and stop an attack. So it's kind of twofold. So it is like the riskier option. Yeah,
because if you mess up, you might be giving somebody 2 punches instead of just the one they tried to make.
Yeah, they might get a, if you've played Guilty Gear, you hear that counter, like you're just like, oh no, I am dead.
Yeah, I'm not really a fighting game guy. I think that, I don't know if I've talked about this on the channel at any point in time before. So I don't really have that frame of reference, but I do like the idea of, you get to choose how you want to deal with the incoming attack based on what you have available to you. Especially also that you're using your own attacks to counter the incoming attacks. So a whole lot of this is based on, what decisions you already made and what abilities you have available to you and what is going to be more useful in that moment off of your turn and a attack that you hope will be successful in landing.
Exactly. And, Calvin, actually, I want to ask you, like, what's your opinions of it? I mean, like, did you feel like you played a Swordmaster character with the choices you've made?
Yeah, I would say so, so the things that I took, what I was trying to lean into is just to sort of, I guess, move and do attacks that were, what I took was the attack called Swift Strike, and with that, if I moved on that turn, then my attack is undodgeable, so the opponent has to choose another way to get away from the attack, and in some positions, their only option would be to dodge. Because again, I have a special move that means my attack is an area effect, so they were required to dodge, and if it's undodgeable, then they just get damaged, which is how that second round sort of ended. But yeah, I liked moving around, I liked, getting my attacks in. I did have another one that was like, this doesn't cost an action if you haven't moved yet this turn, which I kind of relied on. And yeah, like additionally with that, it just felt like I was moving and I was getting my strikes in. There were a couple of times where I was kind of like, I want to stay in this position for a bit, but most of the time I was like up and down the map, I guess.
Yep. I think during the fight, it was, no one stayed in the same position. That's kind of what I dislike. I mean, if you've checked out any of the Lancer streams where I get to be a player character, right? It's like I'm always playing Duke, who is the fastest man alive, and I never want to stay in the same position. I still believe that that one Lancer talent is the best talent in the entire game, where it just allows you to just get free movement every time you make an attack. So that's basically what this game is. It's like movement, the game, and I very much dislike the idea of like battle lines being drawn. So to kind of feel that kind of back and forth of the map, and the map is actually quite small. I'm playing right now. I think the recommended map size is like 10 by 10. So everyone's really close. Even though everyone's really close, you don't feel like you're locked in. At least I didn't feel that playing as the GM. I don't know, Kelvin, what was your thoughts on the map size and how your mobility and stuff felt?
Well, for me, I had the benefit, it depends on how you see it, but for me, I was usually trying to dodge attacks because that was the best skill that I had for avoiding getting hit. But that did require me to move. Like, I couldn't stay in the same position, I couldn't stay in the same square, which I guess for some situations might be inconvenient because you have to move from what you think might be an advantageous position But what it ended up for me being is I'm kind of always moving, because I can move pretty fast on my turn, but then on enemies' turns, if I successfully dodge their attack, I could just move again. So yeah, it kept me pretty mobile. I definitely felt like I moved more in this fight than I normally do, and I guess some other RPGs where you sort of settle into like, I'm close enough to hit the enemy from here, and they're close enough to try to hit me, so neither of us are going anywhere.
Yeah, then everyone just starts bashing each other with big rocks and like, until the HP goes down. But there's also cool moves. So some moves allow you to move before attacking, or even the way that movement works in the game. So dashing, if you want to move diagonally, it costs 2 extra actions, because I kind of want to respect the grid a little bit. So, you know, so it makes positioning like matter a lot and movement matter. So, you know, but there are movement options like such as rush, where it allows you to move diagonally for free. So you could dodge into position, and then, you know, your turn's coming up. So then you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to go ahead and use this ability to rush them. So it's like now you're factoring a couple turns ahead, right, of what you want to do, or where you think things are going to end up, that kind of deal.
I was actually kind of wondering this a bit, if you would use like a hex grid instead.
I thought about using a hex grid, but I just, something about the, you know, the square grid kind of it just makes me happy.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's just, I guess it's what I'm used to. I'm just like, I just want to make a square grid kind of game. Yeah, no, I could use it, but I kind of like the idea of the movement options being limited going diagonally. I think that feels better than just having the hex grid fix all of my problems. As well as like playing on a VTT, I think it's just the squares just fit better in the thing. In just my opinion, especially with a smaller amount of total tiles, I should say, like the actual area of the map being 10 by 10. Having like a 10 by 10 hexagon space, like for the or hex space, is actually, I think, a little too small. That the limiting diagonal movement really kind of expands things a lot more. As well as like starting positions too, right? And now in this one, I think we tried it out as like everyone gets to be 4 spaces away from any grid size, so you can start really close to one another, because, you know, if someone chooses to dodge, then they can get out of dodge. But the idea is that everyone gets in the fight like immediately. No hesitation, right? None of this like start like 10 spaces back and then inch your way forward, right?
True. As someone who has done that. True.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So how did you feel about the special ability? So the way, I guess, in this game works for, you never play fighting games, but there's a thing called an EX move, Calvin, where you would have a regular attack or a regular special move, but you can put a little meter into it and becomes a extra special move, right? So it'd be an EX move. So you're familiar with a Hadoken, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So like the idea would be like a Hadoken is like a 1-hit projectile, but an EX Hadoken would be like a faster 2-hit projectile. So it'll break through other projectiles, it'll hit you twice, that kind of deal.
Yeah, so knowing that now, I can kind of see what you were doing with the attacks, because again, all of them have like their own basic thing that they do. They all have like a basic sort of damage type or a basic description to them that affects how they work. But then if you spend SP, like, they can do something different. Like, for one, it's just a normal attack, but if you spend SP, it becomes an area attack. And yeah, I think I would have to play with more different kinds of characters just to get used to different ways of building up SP before I get like a better sense of it. I did like that. Like, I did like the idea of just like, oh, I know I built SP by making sure my attacks hit. So how can I sort of lean into that and try to take advantage of things that I know are going to hit the enemy, so I can build up more SP, so I can do more stuff with my attacks. I would have to try the rest of them to see like how it feels in certain situations, because you do have the one where like if you get hit you build up SP, and the one where if you wait you build up SP. So I would have to see how those work with different playtests.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Funnily enough, it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever played Burnout Paradise.
Yes. Well, I played all of the Burnouts, I think, except for Paradise.
Well, with Burnout Paradise, like, they have 3 different kinds of like speed boost your car can get. And they sort of change the way you play, because with some of them it's like you get more boost from doing a jump, you get more boost from taking out another car, you get more boost from like just holding down the boost button and never letting it go, and that totally changes up how you approach driving in the game. Because some cars are faster, but they're lighter, so they're more easy to take damage. Some cars are better at, doing more aggressive maneuvers. So yeah, I think I like the idea of like you start with that base, and then you sort of use that to determine what's the most effective way to use my character.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is technically just like a boost meter, right? It's just like hitting the NOS on a move to make it even stronger. So like I mentioned up top, basically the idea is to spend you're not supposed to hold on to your meter, because that's not how you get experience. The way that you would work is that you build up SP, you dump the SP into attacks, and the use of you using that SP is what converts into experience points, so your character can level up, and that's how you get more cool, awesome stuff to basically do more violence. The cycle of violence, yes. Yeah.
I would also have to like get into, testing how XP spend works once there's a sense of like how much you need to spend to go up something, and then what that can unlock for you.
Yeah, I have to work on that. I definitely don't know how that's gonna work, but that's the idea we're gonna run with. Let's see. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so some of the character archetypes I just want to also bring in, like, for instance, the witch. It has an ability called Chant, where when you use the weight ability Chant, you temporarily increase your skill rank for your next mystic attack, by 1 rank. So if you chose the charge playstyle, you can be like, okay, I'm going to Chant. I gain an extra SP, as well as my next magic attack, or sorry, not mystic attack, sorcery attack. Sorry, mystic arts. I changed these names a lot. The next magic attack you do, because you're a witch, will be even more accurate and can hit even harder, basically.
Yeah, but you have to sacrifice like a whole turn to charge that up.
Exactly, which is like a guarantee, I should say, because some of the other ones aren't guaranteed. Like if you never get hit as a defender, you'll never get any SP. But you can choose to just be hit by guarding, right? So you're like kind of guaranteed a little bit that way, but the GM can just choose to not hit you because he's a dick like that. So that's kind of what it is.
Rude. Maybe you need some sort of taunt ability on that fighting style.
Definitely. I mean, I have a bunch of negative effects that I haven't really put into play yet. So one of them is enraged, so that would be the taunt ability we would talk about, or like being afraid, which means that some people you would make them so afraid of you that they will have to dodge, even though they're a really tanky person. They would like to guard. They're too afraid, so they have to dodge, and you get them because they're running away. That kind of thing.
Like other conditions you can put on a character. Yeah, I do like how light this one is. Just like it feels a bit more like, because again, I know design-wise you're sort of more focusing on that fighting game style. I think we were talking about the narrative being more based on a fighting tournament, so I kind of like how sort of I like the idea of just something that's focused on creating a certain kind of story arc.
Yeah, and as far as like, I guess, GM resources, like the NPCs themselves, I have to figure that out a little bit more. But I do like the idea of kind of curating little fight experiences, I would say. So like for our test run, the idea would be like, I call it the Great Tiger of the East. I don't know, but the idea is that it's a spear fighter master kind of person. So he says he is the Great Tiger of the East, but he has an ability where he's able to fight with a bunch of spirit beasts, like spirit tigers, that he summons to aid him in battle. So it's it's like a one person versus the party, where it's like the boss. The objective is to fight the boss and defeat the boss, but he has a bunch of minions in these tigers, and he has abilities where, like, if he lands like a critical hit in one of his moves, he just he can give the tiger an action or something like that, or like the tigers are there to be a nuisance and be really fast, while he kind of sits back and takes on like maybe one opponent at a time, so he doesn't get overwhelmed, while the party gets like trounced by these tigers who can take like multiple hits, but they don't have a lot of HP or something like that. That's kind of the idea or the premise I want to have for each of the NPCs, is like their own kind of boutique experience that you could just plop in. So if you were building like say a multiple NPC fight, so you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna pick like okay, in this I guess combat, it's like I'm gonna pick the Great Tiger of the East and like I don't know a bunch of dark cultists, and so the guy would show up with his tigers and dark cultists would show up with their magic, and then all the party has to go and beat them up, that kind of deal. And as far as I'm thinking that I might have a different modes, I should say. So one mode would be that tournament style, where there would be clear rules on how to run a shonen style battle tournament, right? Where, different rounds or whatever, or maybe something like a battle royale kind of deal, where the party has decided to temporarily align themselves in this battle royale to take out everybody else, and then comes to the final fight where everybody has to try to be the winner, right, of the battle royale, that kind of deal. And I might have one where it's like an adventure mode where the players are playing like folk heroes in the countryside, taking care of bad people, or beating up corporations. I don't know. We'll see about that one. But like I kind of like the idea of different play styles for your characters, and that will dictate like maybe like what your, or I guess it would be campaign styles, or like what your like maybe narrative rules would look like. What does it mean to be the last one standing in the tournament, or like what does it mean to like progress in power in that scenario? I kind of like that. Keeping the whole experience tight, so it's not just like when you play the game, you may only play for a couple of sessions with that character, but it was a good ride. Like it's not like a long a year campaign. I want it to be done in like 4 or 5 sessions. That's like the campaign, or maybe a couple more. Because the fight itself, I think that the rules are really snappy, and you could just bang a couple of those out really quickly. So that's where I'm aiming at. Again, shorter content, not so long. It's not a grand saga. You just are trying to be the living legend. That's right.
Yeah, I think you definitely want something that you can, even just like for one session, like sort of a quick play option in a fighting game. Like you just want to play one round against an opponent or against another player.
Exactly. I'm like digging the idea of calling like mode, like the actual like using fighting game terminology to like lay out the book. Mm-hmm. So like the style select would be like how you gain SP, and it's like choose your fighter, right? And it's like the different classes that you get to choose, right? And then the play mode would be like mode of play, like quick play, like you just want to bang out a combat because this game's cool, or like this is story mode or something like that, or like arcade mode, or like battle tournament mode or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it would be like. Yeah, that's the vibe that I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay. So yeah, I like the vibe of the RPG so far. I think you got a lot of things that are working for it so far. Some of the stuff I was having trouble with, I think we obviously came up in game, is just some of the dice rolling in certain situations. Situations like where I would have like bonus damage, or a bonus to an attack or something like that. And normally the way it would function is like I roll a d6 plus something to do with my rank. So for my sword stuff, it was like a d6 plus a d8, I think it was, because of what my rank was.
Yes.
But because I would have a bonus on the attack, I would have to roll the d8 twice and take the higher one. But I'd end up in a situation where like I roll a d6, then roll 2 d8s and take the higher one, and that was kind of it felt a bit clunky as far as rolling goes. But again, that's the thing that kind of only really comes up in play, because it does, written down, make a lot of sense. But I think in play, it just kind of felt like 3 steps to roll one thing.
Exactly right. I think your solution was to just take the top 2 out of the dice pool and add them together. I think that's very appropriate. I like that too, because there's even some attacks allow you to just roll extra skills, right? So I think it's like a geomancer themed attack where it's like you summon a big old earth club or something and whack somebody with it or something like that, right? That's how it works. So it's like you would roll like your d6 plus your mystic skill plus like your weapon skill, right? And you would just take the highest out of that pool, right? On top of adding like your bonus damage on that. So you would just take the highest 2 results that you get possible. Mm-hmm. So the cool thing about the mechanic is that because everything is just a dice rolls, there's still an opportunity, even if you roll really poorly, to other person to roll really poorly as well. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That did work out for me a couple of times. It's just, the defending roll was too low, and I didn't make a very good attacking roll.
There was a lot of ahs too. Which was really fun, I think, for me anyway. I mean, I got beaten up, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, I think that's just something that, as the game develops, as you test more, you can sort of figure out. I do think the character creation in this was pretty straightforward. I think maybe I would just need to see the steps in front of me written down, but outside of that, I think it was pretty straightforward to deal with. Yeah, outside of just some dice confusion, I'm liking the concept so far, so I kind of want to see where you go with it. I think having a bunch of different kinds of NPCs is probably going to be one of the strengths of the game. As far as the playing of it goes, because I'm kind of visualizing that classic fighting game screen where you choose your character and you have a whole bunch of options there. I'm kind of picturing when the players come in and they want to do a quick thing. If they have a character, if there's a pre-gen character, and then they have a bunch of enemies to choose from, and that whole fight has its own unique themes and dangers and decisions that the players have to make. I think that could be a very strong element of this.
Yeah, and it's just kind of one of those I don't think people's I don't want this. I want this RPG to be less like that long stretching narrative RPG and more of that fun man, we gotta kill an afternoon or something like that kind of RPG where you still get to have the fun of rolling some dice and yelling at some cool attack names and doing some cool stuff. Kind of just but a little bit more complicated than those one pagers. That's where I'm aiming for. So the base rules themselves super easy, but all of the pre-generated content that you can just plug and play, I want to have a vast amount of that. So
yeah, exactly.
It never gets boring or repetitive. So it's always interesting to kind of pick up and do. That's the idea.
Yeah, I think if I could suggest, I think you could borrow a page from Pathfinder and have some pre-gen characters at different levels, some very simple, straightforward ones that people could just hop in and play, and then a whole bunch of different kinds of enemies. I think this game would be pretty strong as a quick afternoon thing, and then when you have those character creation options and you have those longer play modes, that's where you can lean into those, multi-session campaigns.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, liking the game so far. Ramon, is there anything else you wanted to mention about Living Legend or Living the Legend? I feel like a lot of that's going to depend on how the game actually ends up working. But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to comment on specifically that we haven't touched on yet?
No, hopefully I can bang out some of the rules a little bit more and get an alpha document released so people can look at it, test it out, get a test combat scenario going, and hopefully have more feedback and just more content for this one. Definitely excited to work on it some more, but that's all for me.
All right, you got me wanting to work on my own RPG now, but I know that I would want to do something very rules-like because I do not feel like writing rules.
Yeah, me neither. It's too complicated, and I don't need to tell you how to jump across a ledge. You can figure that out as the GM and the players. If it's high enough, it's good. If it's low enough, then it's Indiana Jones time, bitch. Figure it out.
All right. Well, that's going to be the episode for this week. A bit of a shorter one as the year is winding down. But I think next week or maybe the week after, depending on how things go, we'll get into our end of the year episode. And we'll sort of go over some previous things. So I do want to put a comment out to the people in the comments. If you have anything from this year that you want us to talk about, then drop a comment on it below. I think next week either next week or the week after again, we'll get into a recap of previous things and hold ourselves accountable for what we said we would do in last year's end of year episode and how much of that we've stuck to.
I think I failed, man, but we'll see.
I haven't gone back to it. I know I can think of at least one specific thing that I kind of dropped the ball on, so hopefully it's not too bad of an episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is gonna do it for this week. Again, if you want to see more tabletop RPG podcast stuff like this, if you're into the Lancer RPG, if you're into Pathfinder, any of that fun stuff, definitely check out our previous episodes. We have a bunch of discussions on Ramon's other games. We have discussions on Pathfinder recaps, Lancer recaps, and session and like campaign building stuff. That's a whole lot of fun. So go check out all of those things. In addition, there are gaming streams on this channel. The usual schedule is Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Right now I'm playing through Control on Thursdays, which has been a whole lot of fun. Baldur's Gate 3 on Fridays, which, you know, is awesome because it's Baldur's Gate. And Mass Effect Andromeda on Sundays, which we just got to the crime planet, the planet that's full of crime. So... my character met her first bad boy, so she was immediately enamored. So there's that to deal with. Additionally, go ahead and check out all the people we have linked below. There's a bunch of Lancer writers and creators linked below to go check out. Additionally, the Untold Stories Project channel, where I'm at a few times. They're going through some one-shots right now. They have a new series going on. There's going to be some new stuff coming in the next year that I don't want to spoil. And they also recently had their first Patreon game for people on their Patreon. So that was a whole lot of fun. It was a one-shot of the Legends of Tomorrow, who are like these time-traveling superheroes, and we had to rescue Elvis from an Elvis impersonation convention from like a decade after his death.
Okay, that's pretty cool. It's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, it was. It turned out very funny. I decided my character knew nothing about Elvis going into it. I don't know why I did that. I don't know if that's correct for the character, but it turned out very funny, so I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, cool. Go ahead and check them out. But that's all we've got for this week. Ramon, anything else I should mention before we head off?
I think we're all good.
All right. Well, for all of our combo throwing GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.